Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. Sorry for the lack of posting the last couple of days. Um, I'm currently in Florida and been preparing for a hurricane. Um, so this is going to be sort of a compound video because right now I'm actually running on generator power. As I'm not able to do anything because I'm stuck inside. So there were a couple of things that were brought up actually in the comment section, and I'm gonna go over a couple of them. The first one uh, was it the kitgune arcanes applying to mags shards with the theorem. You don't need the theorem, but it helps. But the residual arcanes, and it does. Let me show you that real quick. Archon continuity, the additional effect. This one is theorem demulcent. Increases weapon damage by 8% per second, stacking up to 15x. Pretty nice. I need to get a max ranked one. I'm missing it by like 2 arcanes for this one, so a couple for the next one. Um, so what we're going to be looking for is corrosive stacks. To show the interaction real quick. This is actually pretty nice. I haven't messed around with mag since they added the shards. Whoop. So it was news to me that the shards dealt slash damage. And these surprisingly get pretty nasty. Come on. Okay, got our stack. Gonna pull everything in. And you can see we're gaining corrosive stacks. And the damage is being boosted by the damage per second from weapons, which is kind of cool. Um, the It doesn't seem like it does that much damage, but you can actually recast the armor strip. And it seems like the bubble is a little more effective in being fine tuned when you're standing in the bubble and you target an enemy just adjacent to what you have your 2 on. It doesn't seem like the 2 explode so easily, so you can actually stack bubbles a little faster. It feels a little better. Right? See, I just stacked that. And this one needs a bubble. So 3 bubbles. This feels pretty nice. So, okay, that comment confirmed. Maximilian, you're a genius when it comes to these. That was the person that recommended it. He was also the one that recommended the kit gun video or the kit gun test the time before, and he was right again. It's almost like he's testing it. Uh, but no, he was 100% right, and the damage seems pretty good, especially if you have Panzer, um, and you can add toxin, slash procs, and corrosive with the viral from the Panzer. That's kind of a nasty combo. Um, it does feel like. Sorry, I misspoke earlier. It's not the weapon damage. It's the this one. This one will boost the damage on the shards, the toxin. Um, yeah, Theorem Contagion. Okay, so that one's done. Okay, so we've finally rotated, and I thought we were gonna have a boss fight with the Archon hunts. It was gonna be the 3 quote unquote lieutenants, and then we were gonna do Pazul, right? But that wasn't the case. Maybe Pazul is like the next expansion or something like that, like what they did with like the Kuva, not the Kuva Guardians, the Kuvaliches and the Tenant Sisters, the Sisters of Parvos, and Railjack, where they considered that like one expansion on its own. Maybe this is like the first arc of it, and eventually we will be fighting Pazul. So if you haven't done the fight just yet, it's the same thing. We just completed our first cycle, and did not get kind of sad about that. So I'm at 4 shards on Protea. Just stacking up the health regen for now. No real reason except for the fact that I got a helmet with 1,000 armor. So the 15 health regen is going pretty far right now and allowing Protea to face tank everything. Oh, okay. So I did want to say this. Okay. So the Panzer video. The guy that that posted first was like, "Oh, I just wanted to say first, but he didn't want the Panzer," which I thought was pretty cool because these take a while to make. At least the first time, it's literally a week to get the first stacked one, and then it's another day to get the next one, plus 2 hours for the imprints, or was it an hour and a half each imprint? So it's 7 days plus the imprint making. So it's an imprint per, so that's 4 imprints, and then 2, so that's 2, 4, 6. Yeah, it's basically 7.5 days to rank up the first one and stack them correctly. And I did make a video on it. It's called How to Get a Better Panzer. And it shows you how to stack them. So you're going to have to rank them up, get imprints off of them, combine them. And then with the combined ones, you have to make sure none of the attributes are doubled. And then you rank those up, guild them, pull imprints off, and then combine that into the final one. But you can do that with all of the Vulpaphilas. You can stack them one time like that, and then you can crossbreed with the other Vulpaphilas to get those super easy. So once you have the first stack, it's easy to cut across. But you can't do that with predisites. Predisites actually take an insane amount of time to do, but you can keep the stacked one, but they're way more expensive because where Vulpaphilas and Kavats, you can make 3 imprints. With predisites, they count as Kubros in terms of like making new ones. You can only make 2. So every time you have to make a new one, you have to do the stack the first time, and then you get 2 copies. You have to sell the 1 copy if you are going to sell it. and then you take the other one, and then you have to rank up another Kubro or another predisite that you, whatever version you want, guild it, crossbreed, and then you get 2 more, and then you have to rank up the other one, pull the 2 off the second one that you made, and go across. But anyway, to go along with the guy's generosity, anybody at that point that had said Panzer, because a bunch of people did it at the same time. I actually made a list of the 6 people that all posted at basically the same time. It only showed me hours, but I pulled everybody that had posted at the start. So these 6 people, some guy was the guy that said he didn't want it. Sanbeo, R1Q, Kernan Kong, Capitalism, and Christian Dizik will all be getting Panzers. And I probably would have been a little further along in making them. I have 3 sets of imprints already done, but now I need to go farm Panzers. So I am making progress on these. When I'm done, I'll get in contact with people somehow, like through the comment section or something. And I will give these 6 people Panzer Volpophilas with the stacked resistances. So just putting me to task, putting it out there. This is what I've decided to do because of some guys. Literally, that's the name of that's like that guy over there, some guy. But like literally, that's what his name was. So just to say what it is, there you go. Okay, so we did this one. The other one. Okay, so somebody made a comment in the comment section about corrosive reducing or corrosive doesn't reduce armor on the archon. And man, this was hard to test. Because obviously they're not sitting still. So it basically ended up with me sitting in archon fights. And it was Archon Amar that I was trying to do the video for on this. And Boreal is such a pain in the ass because he floats to test. So I will probably do a actual video the next rotation. Because Amar, or was Naira, sorry. Naira was the last one. Boreal is the new one. Or I guess the new old one. On the second rotation, the owl. But I found that this is actually conditional because obviously the archons can't be armor stripped, right? Like shattering impact doesn't work, abilities don't work. But I actually found that if you were able to prime with corrosive and run a status duration maxed primer, you could actually primes the archon with the corrosive, and the status effect debuff would last so long, you actually could get a little bit of alpha damage. There was actually a slight difference. The damage attenuation was so strong, I really don't think this is very effective, especially since there are already one-shot builds that are available. But I did notice a slight difference. And the other thing was, I was going down the list, and I was actually trying to figure out what works. And viral technically works. I actually went in with, what was it? A super weak paracesis. Just because the math was really nice. Bonus damage to sentience. You get 60% on the weapon, 40% on the sack set. What was I using? I was using this. Okay, so trying to proc as little as possible. So it was 99% damage to sentience with sack steel, with a 99% crit chance multiplier. So as long as I quick attacked, I basically had a guaranteed yellow crit. with a guaranteed double damage. Exactly double damage. It's 99% and 99.2%, right? But you see the logic behind this? I didn't put any elements on it. Regular organ shatter for 4.9. I even did dispatch overdrive, and this is just movement speed. It doesn't affect the damage. And prime fury to make the heavy attacks a little bit more manageable. It doesn't affect the windup, but it affects actually swinging the weapon, right? And pressure point to give me some damage. I needed it. So it's a base paracesis with Tempo Royale. Viral does affect the dots. But the problem is the damage attenuation hits you so hard. I only noticed it when I took off primed pressure point and I was hitting it for like 100 damage, and I would get a slash proc and it would be like 1200. If I primed it, I could then get like 6k slash proc. So you can do the thing where it's like you hit it for slash and then you hit viral afterwards and you boost the slash procs, right? You can do that. Viral priming does work. But the issue is you only get 4 stacks. And the big one, math-wise, is the first one, right? So it's plus 100 health damage for the first viral stack. And then you get plus... I'm going to do 75% because it's plus 25% per viral stack for the next 9 viral stacks, right? So you get 175 bonus damage. And it applies. Like, you 100% get the boost. But the problem is the damage attenuation and the damage reduction is so high, it murders the faction damage. You're not getting the double buff. The only thing that I really found that allowed you to bypass the damage attenuation was literally headshots. Like, I would be hitting for like primed quick attacks. And that's part of the reason why I did prime pressure point, is so the damage wasn't jumping around like condition overload, right? So I was doing prime pressure point for consistent damage so I could constantly hit it for the same number if everything procced correctly. And I was getting like 5704 on a quick attack with like 6394 slash, right? But if I did a headshot, I would hit for like 61k on a headshot, but then I'd get the same slash because the damage attenuation had taken effect. Because what I was thinking is that maybe there was some way to cheese it if you wanted to do like a melee build. Obviously, it's not going to be like the best way of dealing with them, but just to have some variety if you want to walk up and like smack it with a pennant or something, you know, just give you some variety instead of constantly running like the Heck or the Incarnon weapons. And it turned, because one of the things that you used to be able to do, and I didn't know if it was still in the game, is you used to be able to bypass sentient damage reduction, because it was damage applied after the adaptation got nerfed. So if you went up to a sentient that was strong enough, or full enough health, you could smack it with a slash proc, and the slash proc wouldn't get reduced with the adaptation if the slash proc was applied before the adaptation kicked in. But it would get overridden with new status procs, right? So if you smacked it once, you could bypass the adaptation entirely. That is not the case with the archons. There is something that prevents you initially, and it's got to be the damage attenuation, because you're using crit, because you're using base damage, because of the attack speed, the equation for it. It's just got to be forcing it down to a specific value because it's been being crushed so much. So, in terms of corrosive reducing armor, in a nuance, bro, really, really technical, being an asshole about it way, technically corrosive applies, but trying to take advantage of it is really sweaty. I did try doing, and I'll do it the next time on Amar when, or Naira when she shows up, because the headshots are super easy. I tried priming with corrosive and viral, and then using a Felarx without Zadas, and I was able to hit her for like 116 million damage on where Deadhead and actually, you know what? Sitting here talking about, I can just show you the build. I was using this on her. It's just a shit ton of raw damage, right? With Deadhead, you'd get Hell stacked up, Deadhead stacked up, Savvy stacked up, and then you'd primer, and then headshot because it's the snake, right? It's really easy to see what you're aiming for, and you just bomb her for a headshot. And because it was all one initial hit, and the way you can see your headshots easier, because I was trying to do it on the first one, because of the cutscene, you really can't see it, so you had to go to the second one and then headshot her there, because there's no cutscene after she gets killed, right? It's only when the first health gate hits that the cutscene triggers. So you can see what your damage is on the second time you encounter her in that mission. So I was having to, every time I would go through and test, I was having to go through the first gate and then headshot her on the second one so I could actually see what my damage was. Because if you one-tap her, you don't get to see what the number is, right? And see if it's effective. And this was doing pretty good. Monster viral, monster radiation. Radiation is what her armor's weak to. Viral is what her health pool's weak to. There you go. So I'm going to be making a video on the next rotation, because for me, I don't know what it is. I just can't hit the fucking owl in the head. I just, for whatever reason, I just can't. I have to use like Zada's Wisp or something like that to melt it down. With like a Fenmore or something. It's just for whatever reason I can't hit the headshot. I always feel like I'm hitting the crystal or like a body part. But like Naira, for whatever reason, those headshots are so easy. So going with the guy's comment, it's really difficult to show right now, especially with the way the owl's abilities are set up. But corrosive technically works. Viral technically works as a primer. But you have to run so much status duration, so the damage attenuation will calm down, but the status effects will still be there. So if you try to do like a new core with damage on it, the attenuation's going to be up. So you would run like corrosive because it's more important on like a primer. And what I was doing is I was doing the Sea-Doo for corrosive and doing viral on a new core, where it was literally just a pair of 60/60 viral mods, or a pair of 60/60 mods to get viral, and some multi-shot, and 2 status duration mods. What is it? The auger, I forget what it is. The auger, it's the auger mod and the other one. This one. This is what I was using. Dexterity for my secondary, because I was trying to test damage with that, because the paracesis is so normalized, like all of its numbers would line up really well. So perpetual agony, auger seeker, viral, galvanized diffusion for some more multi-shot. Obviously I could have done like barrel, right? Yeah, barrel diffusion, but I was just trying to get a little bit of multi-shot, but not a ton. Got multi-shot on the Riven. And some punch through and magazine capacity. It's whatever. It's a primer new core Riven, right? So this is what I was using to keep the viral on, and it would stay on longer than the damage attenuation. And the other stats didn't matter, right? Obviously, you have microwave, which is a permanent status. So 4 status new core, and it technically works. Like if I waited for the status to fall off, and then popped it with the fell arcs. When I did the new core and the fell arcs, I was getting nasty numbers. But if I did the Sea-Doo, the new core primer, and then the paracesis, the headshots was definitely higher. But the raw damage to the body, it seemed like attenuation was taking into effect permanently. You would get like one really good hit for like 200k, and then attenuation would take over, and then you're back down to like 5,700 is the number I was getting. So to be continued on that. Obviously, me just talking about it doesn't apply. But if somebody can do the owl and see the headshots and everything, it's worth testing, right? Somebody asked about laetum builds. Man, an interesting patch the other day. This is a big old maybe now. Bingchilling chroma with Zada. The interaction no longer works. So the insane scaling on the laetum with the 50% for 2,000% damage, depending on when you watch this video, could be threatened. Now, as of right now, the laetum and the Zada together still work. But the chroma and Zada doesn't. So pour one out for the Serrata users. So this one, if they actually manage to do Zada and laetum and prevent that interaction, I am going to be swapping my laetum back to a crit build. With the base damage increase instead of the 50% for 2,000, because it'll be better damage. Especially because you can take off your primary. Or swap out your arcane to something that you like more. Like a deadhead or something. But I did make a video on it. If you are watching this, I think I posted it. Posted a comment replying to it. If not, I'll check. So that is a maybe, because they're getting close to stuff that is really, really close to picking what that build is. If they leave Zadas alone, it is purely, if you're using the laetum and the Zada, it's 110% the no crit build. But if you're running regular star chart and you're doing like a corrosive heat build with like Cascadia Flare, that is so much damage. Why not just go corrosive heat with crit chance, right? Like that is just so much damage. Especially with the raw damage increase from the evolution. Somebody in the clan asked me how I'm dealing with the ammo changes. Because a lot of people are using, I'm seeing lots of Sea-Doos, Strophas, and I forget what the other one, Tenoras, and ironically, I saw a couple of Mutilus Cernoses. What is this, 5 years ago? And basically, I think this topic has been covered pretty heavily by most other people. I know I've said it myself a bit. As my go-to daily driver now is basically become the Tonkor. I can't really recommend this build specifically. Because the reason why I'm running corrosive is because I get viral from the Panzer. And the Riven that I have is super nasty. Because I'm using corrosive for raw damage. And Hunter Munitions doesn't care about status chance. So even though the status chance is dumpstered, the slash from HM gets increased by status duration. And this weapon does so much raw damage. Even when I was using this for the interception on the Archon mission with 4 people, I was still hitting for like 600k, 800k slash ticks. Like, I'm not going to be mad about that. I was using Neja's 2 buffing it, by the way. So that's not like raw, but like I can get like over 100k slash. It's not particularly nasty, but like you're not going to say no to a 200k slash tick, right? So just raw damage. Serration could obviously, Amalgam Serration could obviously be swapped out for Faction, but I enjoy using Amalgam Serration for the sprint speed. So if you want what my daily driver is, this is what it is. And it's pure, it's a Toxin Tonkor with a Stormbringer. So pretty basic build. I'm not even running the Augment for reload or the Arcane for reload. So there you go, but it's got a Riven. If you don't have this, honestly, you could probably run the reload mod just to get your reload up. The big deal about the Tonkor and why you've been hearing about it so much is because ammo got nerfed so hard. They took it off of primary merciless, so your ammo pool is a big deal. Unlike most of the other big AoE weapons, the Tonkor has 3 ammo pickup. So when you're doing vigilante supplies, obviously for the little bit of crit enhancement, right? Like I don't mind it, a little bit of RNG. It boosts your ammo pickup by 30%. So when you pick it up, you get a 4th one. Sometimes. So it is what it is. You get 4 most of the time. Sometimes you get 3. But this is just what my daily driver has been. And I've been using the Agit, or however you pronounce it. The other way that I've been dealing with this is using Cascadia Flare. Because heat is so readily available on the frames that I play. Just recently, it's like what I feel like playing. It tends to be frames that have heat on it. Cascadia Flare, for those that don't know, most of you probably do. On heat status effect, this applies to any heat status effect. So like Neja, you throw your 2 at something, you get like 20, 30 stacks. Something walks in the trail. Every time the trail deals damage, not the actual heat status effect itself, but every time the trail deals damage, that's a status effect. Proteus turrets count as heat. So and more importantly, the heat can be boosted by multi-shot heat procs. So if you have a weapon that you have this on, say like the Nucor is particularly nasty with this. The Sinacor, or Psychron, not the Sinacor. The Psychron is really good with this, and man, what's the ray gun? The Athadai really abuse the shit out of this mod. Really enjoy this. So this is just sort of how I've been dealing with it. It's the way I view this is like it allows you where melee, if you're running dexterity, kills with your melee will allow your primary or your secondary to have stacks ready on it. If you have a weapon with a ton of multi-shot, or it's like a beam weapon where you get the double tick rate, right? This is on heat status effect, not on kill. So you can 0 to max this in super quick order. The only other nuance in terms of like dealing with the ammo issue, right? Is what was it? This wasn't my. Somebody did the math. Who was it? Oh, Gaz TV. When running, and it requires a team effort. He came out with a video recently, and I'll find it and post a link in the bottom. Where if you run ammo, the scavenger sets, remember these exist. If you run the scavenger sets, and two people run these, and you're all running like rifles, or you're running like pistol recovery, like ammo recovery. These stack additively with each other. Like I knew that, but like you can recover a full magazine with these, with things like the Ogress and Arby's was what he was talking about. Um, and running these, I'm not gonna lie, it basically fixes your ammo economy. Like even running like an unranked one, I haven't even ranked them up, but like just I've been seeing these aura mods show up more, so I'm guessing people know about it. So I didn't feel like it was something that was super pertinent to be covered. But yeah, if you run one of those over, say, like a corrosive projection, which probably needs to be changed on this Proteum, you could run like an ammo scavenger mod on like a rifle ammo scavenger, and that would like fix the Toncore, right? Or if you're running like a shotgun, run a shotgun ammo scavenger or something. If it's like a bullet hose, you probably don't have ammo issues. So that's basically how I've been dealing with it. Um, what was the other one? Dealing with ammo damage. Okay. Oh, another question that was asked. With the new, or I guess the second time we've seen the owl archon, the little buzzards that spawn. This one's gonna be quick. These guys, the Aerolysts. All right, so all we're gonna do is just look at what they're weak to. But I was being asked, how do you quickly deal with their belt, the canisters around their belt? And there's really two ways to knock this out of the park super quickly. One is the Stropha. It pops all of them in one or two heavies, like that. Right? You can also, if you're running high noon, the double hit tends to do pretty good. And this is on a heavy attack build. So that's how you would clear those pretty quickly. The other way costs you a void strike. Right? So that's how you deal with those guys quickly. And the punch through, when Boreal has the little pyramid defense thing, the punch through helps with killing the little orbs, right? And obviously it's a projectile that doesn't cost you any ammo, which is in short supply nowadays. Because a lot of people were saying to run like energized munitions. And I think that is just a little bit of a radical way to deal with it. Having to helmet the same helmet ability onto every frame so you don't run out of ammo. I mean, obviously, you're thinking right. You're thinking about doing your build. And not having and minimizing a negative to impact it, right? So energized munitions does do it, but I just think it's a little excessive in the having to obligate yourself to run energized munitions all the fucking time. Okay, so that one's done. Okay, I was asked, does the predisite armor stacking still work? Yeah, no, I'm making predisites now for the people that commented as like the giveaway for 1,000 subs or followers. Was it subs? on YouTube. Yeah, subs. When we hit 1,000, um, I decided to give away something that was like pretty useful. Because it's time consuming. It's not like plat intensive. It just takes forever. Um, yeah, they still work. I'm making them now. I explained in the video how to do it. You just need to. The best way to do it is to literally just give them really crappy names. Hold on. Like you see this, it's the mutagen combination and the antigen combination, right? So you can see the combined. So you'd make one of each of the combinations. So you would have the areoli with the abexian, and one that's Iranian and an antigen, and the leptosam, or however you pronounce that. You would make that, and then you'd combine them, and this would be like the middle tier, right? And then you'd combine it to that. So it works with the predisites. You got to build it up the first time. Just use whatever the if you're going to be doing this on your own, and you've been hunting these guys, there is clearly a most common one of these. Just use that, okay? And once you get over the first sun token combination, it becomes self-sufficient. The first one takes like what is it, like 10 sun tokens to combine, right? You combine it, level it, guild it, and that takes the sun tokens, right? Um, you do the imprints, and then you dump it and turn it back in for sun tokens, and that gives you the sun tokens to do the next one. So that's how you do this. But I had a bunch, so I just knocked them out. But this is what a final one looks like. You got the Pharaoh. It still works on all of these. The Medjay. So yeah, still works. I talked about the Panzer Prime giveaway. Oh, ooh, kind of a good question. Okay, here we go. So the Archon mods are in the game now. What do you do with umbral mods? Weapons. You put them on weapons. You put them on heavy attack weapons or weapons that are really, really strong and don't need a mod. Like the Strophe is a really good candidate for it. The other one that I would say is a really good candidate is the Karst Prime for your corrupted killing pleasure, a blood rush, and sacrificial steel. You'll start seeing some pretty good red numbers. And because you really don't have to worry about adjusting the elemental balance on the Karst, you can just do like raw damage and boost the procs, the status, the slash, and the toxin on its own, since you really don't have to worry about like balancing them. They're already in the correct balance. So I actually put a sacrificial steel on it, even though I have a Riven for it also, and I umbral modded it. So you're mainly going to be using them on frames that really, really need a triple umbra, but don't bother using umbral mods on frames where you need like one. The only exception would be, I think it's Banshee. It's Banshee, right? That needs the one. Yeah, Banshee. Frames like Banshee, where if you equipped an umbral intensify, because I'm using a Sonic Fracture on her right now, because I like my balanced builds. With a single mod, this will allow me to 100% armor strip. So in circumstances like this is where you would use the umbral mod. But in terms of like triple umbra wisps, I mean, if you want to do it, by all means, nobody's going to stop you, right? But the utility of these have gone way down in terms of frames. Because you can put on some frames, you can equip all of them. Like the Lavos video was a meme, right? But Titania can legitimately use all of them. So where with Lavos it was a meme and everybody was like, oh, can't use Archon float. Titania can actually use all of them. So stuff like that, you're not going to be putting for your speed builds. You're not going to be doing umbral intensifies on like a speed Titania. I saw that a couple times. I wouldn't recommend it, but I saw it. It existed. So mostly these are going to free up heavy attack builds significantly, unless you're doing like a triple umbra. Like I have one on Nezha. Nezha has one. Really didn't need it, but I use this frame a lot if I want to go into Steel Path and just face tank. This Nezha will face tank 1500s on Steel Path and literally just survive off of Arcane Grace. So if I need to be able to weapon test and actually do it in the game with Steel Path, this is what I'm taking. But I don't run this for missions that I'm trying to do. There's a purpose for this, right? And besides, Nezha can actually benefit from these. Vitality, not so much normally, but because I'm running Arcane Grace, the extra health just basically means more health regen, and it's got elite health, right? So for swag points. And what's the other one? Wukong, I think really only needs 2, right? Yeah, Wukong I think only needs 2 at most. But Archon Intensify, now that they fixed the heal over time, you only need 1. So this is a waste of an Umbral mod. Because it used to be you wouldn't run armor on Wukong and you would get the armor from Defy. So you would run 2 Umbrals and then leave the spot open for Primal Rage and run Duration, right? But Archon Intensify is now super easy to trigger on Wukong. But you just have to have like health left, right? Oh, you know what? The Panzer's healing me. Hold on. I picked up a health orb. Oh, come on. Are there spores still on these guys? Hold on. Hold on, what is healing me? The game doesn't want me to have less health. Hold on.
It has developed immunity to your attacks. Try something different.
Okay. So as you can see, 30%. Sometimes I hate the simulacrum. It still thought they had Panzer spores on it. Anyways. Wukong is super easy to get that stuff to proc on it now. And it has more to do with the gameplay, right? The gameplay loop, the ability loop. You're going to be using Cloudwalker or your 3 as a panic button, right, at higher levels, to try to survive. So as you're casually taking damage, you will always be able to proc this. And if you're using combat discipline, you can run this with like an unranked one. You can run it with an unranked one. Just adjust something. It might cost you a forma though. Okay, there we go. We got flow back. And this will slow the health loss, right? So you don't have to proc it so much. And then when you see your health go down a little bit, or you've killed like 20, 30 enemies, just proc Cloudwalker, go for your little cloud trip, right? And get your proc back. Maybe proc Defy afterwards with the boosted value. And it does snapshot on Primal Fury. Or, sorry, the Primal Rage. So you every time this procs, you should be able to instantly proc this over like the next couple of enemies. Or instantly stack it, if you will. So, if you're running a 4 build. So that being said, the umbral mods just got freed up from being needed on frame so much. They're going to give you more ability to run like sacrificial steel on weapons. But obviously there's going to be niche uses, but in terms of like the umbral intensify being the go-to now, you don't have to run it on most frames now because they fixed intensify and what triggers it. It's easy. It'd probably be easier to list the stuff that doesn't trigger it. Like arcanes don't trigger it. So, food for thought. Okay, I did want to address this. I know over the course of like Tanner and I making videos, there have been times where like we have covered similar topics near each other. And I made a video like a couple days ago, it was my last one, where I talked about follow through amongst other things. Because he tends to focus on like one specific thing for a video, right? Where I will just talk and do longer winded content. But I talked about follow through technically before him. And it's nothing. So like the people, not the people, it was two people messaging me going like, "Oh, he's copying or whatever." Man, get the fuck out of here with that. Listen, like besides the fact that we both use the Hess bar, and the reason why we use the Hess bar is because its follow through is garbage, and it's a great example. Like unless I grab the same Quasar guy and have him bring in like and spawn stuff in for me, and we talk about the exact same things. Listen, I straight up told him because he asked, he was like, "Oh, I saw you did like a follow through video. I was already editing one. Do you mind if I cover it?" I gave him permission to unilaterally and permanently, even if he copies it. I don't care. Um, because I'm not going to be a Warframe YouTuber. I have a job. This is a hobby. And this is mostly for like clan and alliance members, and obviously like consideration with like the YouTube subscribers now also. But this is mostly for to be informative for my clan and alliance members. So like the idea of somebody taking my unique idea, whatever, man. Like I don't care. So don't message me with that. Miss me with it. Um, Even if he were to like straight up yoink it, it's more people enjoying the game knowledgeably, and I see that as an absolute win. Because if his group doesn't watch my videos, they still need to know the information. So if they watch him, and a lot of my subs came from him, but I still have the subs that found me before Tanner shouted me out. If my subs and his subs don't watch the video, or like one of the groups watch the video, even if my subs found the information through his video, it they just need to learn the information. I don't particularly care how the person learns it. I just care that it's accurate information, um, and that they learn it. It doesn't have to come from me. So the idea of like Warframe, listen, there's no innovation in the game like that anymore. Okay, there's no, they killed it. So the idea of like somebody coming up with like a never before thought of interaction, it is, it would be hard for me to believe that. It would be somebody, what would show up most likely would be somebody finally testing and seeing what something is. But in terms of like hybridizing abilities and like coming up with something truly creative, I just don't see it. And people were bringing up, "Oh, you're the archon guy." Listen, the only thing I did was I was able to roll them when we weren't supposed to be able to, and I made a bunch of videos to ensure the information was accurate as it was. And even then, vitality changed a ton, and I said it as much as I could. So just chill with the, "Oh, he's doing your video." I don't care. Um, so the nuance on the follow through, whatever. If you enjoyed how he explained it, watch his video. If you enjoy how I explained it, watch my video. It's all information. It just needs to be accurate. So like, I want you guys to be able to play the game better. Because I know there's nothing for me to farm, or that I want to farm more particularly. Because there is stuff I could farm. But it's nothing that helps me in like how I play my version of Warframe. Because for me, my philosophy is, and yes, I'm going with a water analogy because I'm currently sitting in a hurricane. Um, is the most efficient way to drink water is with an open cup during a rainstorm. Because you just get to drink water. Why would you go to a desert to quench your thirst? So if you're looking for something that fills you up or that you enjoy, why would I go somewhere and do something that I don't enjoy? This is a game. It's supposed to be fun. I enjoy testing. I enjoy finding little interactions that allow you to explain stuff better and it'll bring like a deeper understanding to the game. It's just tinkering with downtime. And I enjoy educating my clanmates. I enjoy meeting them. It's the social aspect. I can do level caps. I can do level caps pretty easily. Steel Path Cascade gave me a bit of trouble. Not anymore. But it was super exciting learning about it because it was like, oh man, this is so cool, right? So now the thing is going to be figuring out the dumbest thing that can level cap in Cascade. Like literally finding the dumbest thing that can do it. Because that's how I enjoy Warframe. That's where I can easily fill my cup and get my thirst quenched, right? So just relax. I'm making videos in an incredibly lazy way where I just get to talk, but I enjoy it. So the nuance on follow through, I'm just going to bury that. I'm not covering follow through anymore. He did a fine job. The only thing, and oh my god, it's so paranoid. It exists though. Is I might make a video. Actually, you know what? I'll just explain it. Because the issue is I'm the host, so I can't even show you. But it's 100% in the game. When you use something... Actually, hold on. I have the paracesis. It's a little bit easier to visualize. And let me get a frame that's not so loud with effects. Okay. Ice cream. Here we go. If you see... the cleave that it makes, right? Like literally the motion that it makes. It's not a true 360. So people were asking me about like the optimum range for like follow through, right? Like is there a chart? And the issue is it's not really about range to follow through. It's about accidentally hitting something first while you're trying to kill something else. So the issue is say you're trying to kill an Eximus. Like the issue with the paracesis is if you look on the forward motion, right? It's all these side attacks. And let's say the Eximus is right here. And I'm trying to kill it, but I have all these 360, 180 degree, third of a full arc swings. I'm hitting stuff to the left, I'm hitting stuff to the right, I'm hitting stuff off to the side. I'm not hitting what I'm trying to kill with the maximum amount of force. And on things like arson Eximuses, and like Noxes, they're not an insane threat to you. But like a bombard, if you're not paying attention, because let me tell you, there is no way in hell anybody can convince me that you can see a bombard missile with all of the effects in the fucking game. I can turn everything off and have 30 bombards shoot at me, and then you can spot the missiles. But there's no way in hell you're going to see that in like a cascade or like there's arson Eximuses around. You're not seeing the damn missile. So you have to be able to target them down. So the issue is if you're doing like this, you'll be able to target them. But like on the swing sideways, I'm hitting enemies adjacent to it. So instead of the bombard getting 100 pennies on the dollar, of the damage that I want to deal with it. And I want to blow up this priority target or a higher threat, however you want to talk about it. I'm doing more damage to the shit standing beside it, and it's trash mobs. I don't care about trash mobs, and neither do you. Because eventually, it's a bunch of elite units, and it's a bunch of Eximus is what you're facing eventually at level cap. Actually, beyond level cap. Doesn't it take, like, what is it, 1,300 minutes? It used to be. That used to be the meme, right? It was like 1,300 or 1,100 minutes for all of the enemy units. You would have been at level cap for hours at this point. But the true I'm done scaling of Warframe was when all of the enemy units would turn into Eximus units. And that like was double the amount of time it took to reach level cap. That was the true end game. And not many people did that. Most people stopped when they saw the quadruple nines, but there's additional scaling built into the game. I don't know how that works now, considering there's like a cap. But I'm pretty sure elite units exclusively spawn eventually. I mean, I'm pretty sure they did before you hit level cap anyway. But I know the Eximus became the thing, is that eventually it would be nothing but Eximus. But the issue with follow-through is it's not about the range, because the other thing is even if your weapon has like 0.4 follow-through, right? Like, say it's really garbage, like 0.4. Literally the worst stat they can give it, right? If I'm standing here, I just hit 5 enemies. Right? But say I'm trying to blow up this one. I hit this guy first, this guy second, and then I dealt damage to the guy I'm trying to hit. Right? Because this is 7 meters. But there's a slight forward movement. Right? So 7 meters. Okay, so like even at 7. All of that is in my swing arc. So if I'm trying to hit this guy and there's 5 enemies standing over here, what I'm actually trying to hit is taking no fucking damage. That's the issue with the follow through. That's why like fist weapons with like range rivens and primed reach and spring-loaded blade sounds absurd, but they're godlike when dealing with groups. Because if you can get a 10-meter range on something like a Tico Prime or something like that, they do so much damage. So that's the issue, is that when you start getting into this, it does make sense to shrink. If you are doing a raw damage build, it is particularly effective on it. Because like right now, I'm running, I'm pretty sure this is one from I've got radiation on it. So for this, it would be more slash radiation. If you're doing like say like a raw corrosive damage, you're just trying to blow up stuff as much as possible. So, but when you dump your damage into something, or you do like a heavy attack on a heavy attack build, but you're still using quick attacks, like say, okay, like the Stropha High Noon build, right? You've got 2 quick attacks, that little swing, and then you've got the thing that triggers the heavy attack, right? You want to be able to dump as much damage as possible into what you're trying to kill. And if you have too much range, you'll hit a bunch of stuff you're not trying to. And that's the issue. Because even with this, if these guys were all turn, that's 4 reductions in damage. Or what? 1, 2, 3. Hold on. 1, 2. Okay, so that would have been 3. So this would have been reduced by whatever the follow through is on this blade 2 times, and then the target I was trying to kill would do damage. What's that guy over there? So that's the issue with it. So the way you would compensate for it is don't run as much range, obviously. Faction damage, run double crit or attack speed, or more base damage. So it would be attack speed first. You could get away with doing like a gladiator vice and then a berserk. Because of the scaling on it, that's actually pretty good. Since you can't do berserker and like prime fury anymore. Log and reward not tradable. Don't bother looking at Warframe Market for it. Those would be pretty solid options. But it would benefit more, or it's less punishing having reduced range on raw damage builds like a corrosive build. Because one of the ways that dot builds don't get entirely screwed over by range is the fact that you're already dealing damage in a range. So slash, the issue with slash in terms of DPS is that it takes 1 second for the damage to trigger. So when you hit something and it's not getting staggered, the enemy's just looking at you for a second. So one of the things that does compensate for that is with this, I'm hitting enemies like on this, they're spread apart really pretty good. Normally, if it's like running down a hallway or a big group, because they tend to file in, there's probably another enemy standing here. So the guy behind really isn't going to be shooting at me yet. The AI is going to make him try to get a position. So if I'm hitting this, even though it's a lower slash proc, and my raw damage is getting murdered, I'm still doing damage to something. So it's not a complete loss, it's a balancing act. But if the weapon has garbage follow through, you do have to weigh your options. But if you want to do the faster attack speed, shorter range thing, you're going to be running around like Roadrunner, blowing stuff up, because you're going to have to get close to him, like this. And you need this to die as fast as possible, so you can run to the next thing. Otherwise, it's literally going to be you run up with your short follow-through weapon, and you're going to wait a second for it to die before your damage really kicks in. Now, if you're doing lower level content, you're probably killing it with raw damage anyway, even if it's a slash build, let's be honest. So even with like slash on a really bad weapon, as long as it's not like a 0.4 dispo, god, the Hespars follow through so garbage. As long as it's pretty decent, and I would say anything 0.6 and above isn't absolute shit. 0.5 and 0.4 are just, they're horrible. They're garbage. But that's sort of the dynamic, is if you're doing like a slash build or a toxin build, you want those dots ticking as fast as possible. If you're doing a corrosive build or like a radiation build, and gas and electric proc instantly on your first hit, so you could do it with that, you can sacrifice reach for a high attack speed build because you're going to be dealing damage instantly. You're not waiting for a dot to trigger. So it depends on how you're dealing your damage also. So I'm done nuance broing it. Faster attack speed to compensate for a garbage follow through you're going to have to run a slightly more upfront damage to be able to keep your kill per second up. But if you're running like a dot build that takes a second to trigger, even if it's bad follow through, you kind of gotta put range on it out of necessity, so you can get that slash dot ticking as fast as possible. It's just sort of the name of the game, and then you also have like dealing with like enemy density, right? Even at like level cap, like doing cascades and whatnot, to be honest, cascades aren't that bad in terms of enemy density. That's one of the things I love about them, is you got some flexibility on builds. Because the amount of enemies in one spot just isn't what it is in like a survival, unlike the Orokin Derelict, right? Or like an infested tile set. So the enemy density is a little lower, so you can get away with more raw damage builds. That don't necessarily have the dot scaling. But even on bad follow through, there are times where by default, not because it's the best option in terms of DPS wise, but just in terms of straight up utility, you have to think, how many times are you honestly going to be hitting 10 enemies at once? Obviously, on say like the Kuva Fortress, if you're in specific tunnels where like you're getting ganged up on, if that's your strategy, do your thing. But unless it's like say stairs or like a T junction, right? Like you know how they kind of group up around those. How many enemies are you really hitting at once? 5, 6, 7, maybe. I mean, you're hitting a chunk, right? But unless it's like a corridor, like a T junction, but if it's like one of the big open rooms, you might be hitting 2 or 3. If it's a corridor, you could be hitting a ton of them. Like one of those T junctions where you like spawn in at, right? The 4-way connector with the little bridge in the center with the 2 pits on either side, tends to be pretty bad for enemy density also, because you have it's such a slow area for them to get through. But those are rooms, right? Like if you don't have the right setup, you can just move, right? But if you're trying to do like kills per second, you're worried about like farming and whatnot. Obviously, it's something to consider. But even if the follow through is super garbage, you're kind of stuck with primed reach, unless you have a way to group. But and that's the thing, is if you're grouping, say with like a Nidus 2, screw reach. Like just go attack speed. Just screw reach altogether. Or even take like shattering impact. Because the follow through is on the resulting damage, right? So one of the things that helps it. Hold on, maybe I can actually show this. What do we got? I got Nidus. Of course, I got Nidus. Man, what's a fast armor strip that's weak? Ooh, oh, that's got electric. What's the other horrible one? Shaco. The 6th form of Shaco. lmao. Okay, Atlantis Vulcan. This guy. Follow through is 0.5. We need our range. We'll go double range just for the meme. Status effect. We're going to proc that instantly. And let's get some attack speed. There we go. Alright, looks good. Alright, so they're going to be grouped. Okay, so they're armor stripped in the worst way possible. Now let's group them, and hopefully they won't spit this far as last time. So the damage gets reduced. Okay. Based on the damage before, right? So you see lots of 3s, lots of 1s. 177, it goes down, right? Because it's got this monster range on it. But then if we do something ridiculous, it can help with the follow-through issue. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And that's not it. I need this. Alright, so we're using exos. And their health is weak to viral. And we have got so much rage on this weapon. Alright. Now let's see what our fall off is. We got about 2/3 of the way through the group that time. Even got some status effects. But more importantly, obviously we added elemental, right? But we're not seeing 8s. Or we're not seeing as many 1s. It's because follow through. You can see it here, right? No issues with follow through. There's still a couple black numbers back here, right? But the follow through isn't so bad now. It's not a ton. It's because we're hitting with the enemy's weakness, and when you hit something that's unarmored, the follow through doesn't get hurt as bad, because follow through is based on like the base, so you can sort of help it out a little bit by doing like initial viral, like it's based on raw damage, right? So it goes down from the top. If you obviously do a bigger modded viral on an enemy that's armor stripped, you can get away with a 0.5 follow through on this garbage weapon. Now, obviously, you're not going to run this build because this is a bad weapon. But it's not so bad. 10-meter range Shaku, please. So doing stuff like that definitely helps. It is not going to liven it up and turn it into a god tier weapon, but that doing stuff like that can help with the follow through issue on bad weapons. Constantly strip or group strip and hit them with whatever their health bar is weakest to, and generally at that point they're dead. So there are ways to nuance bro around it. There are ways. But that's just sort of the dynamic you have to juggle based on the mission. And if you're running through like normal star chart, steel pass stuff, you kind of don't have to worry about it too much. But in like level cap runs, these sort of dynamics can either make your level cap run really frustrating, where you feel like your weapon's doing damage, but you're just not killing fast enough. It's probably because you have a shit follow through. Um, so that's the sort of stuff to keep in mind, and I think I explained it. I think I would. That's enough. No more follow through out of me. Somebody said 10-hour video when I would die. I have done a 24-hour stream before. And I can't do that anymore. Um, okay, another thing that I wanted to talk about, and it was I tend to overthink things a lot, or at least mull them over, chew on them, see how I feel about it. And for some reason, I just didn't even think about it. People watching the YouTube videos and wanting to join the clan and the alliance that I run. Um, Officially, as of right now, I am waiting to hear back from a couple of my clan leaders on what an official policy is. That, like, an agreement, we just need to talk about it. It's not like I'm against it or like for it or anything, but it's just like, listen, everybody gets an opinion. If it's not worth waiting for somebody to comment on it, whatever, right? So I'm just waiting back on an official thing. Because technically, right now we do have room, but I need to talk to a couple of my people who really enjoy having like mild authority, or have like a section of whatever that they enjoy doing, whether they like recruiting, whether they like being super social with people, whether they like like educating people. Like everybody gets whatever they want, right? Um, or decorating, right? I need to talk to a couple of them about my clan personally, but like as far as the alliances, it's mostly the other clan leaders, their clans. I will bring up to them under the guise of like, oh, I've had a couple people ask from the YouTube thing if they could join. If anybody is looking to expand their clans, would you want this to be like a resource pool? But generally, I've met a couple people from the YouTube chat and everything. A lot of people have contacted me in game, and most of y'all are in clans. A couple of alliance leaders have talked to me. There were people I never thought I would talk to. Like I had even heard of their clans, right? It's just like, oh, they're incredibly hardcore XYZ, like they're like Eidolon hunters or something like that. Like that's just not my speed. I mean, they're fantastic at it, but it's just not my speed, right? Um, so I need to talk to people in terms of like an official policy on it. Um, and I suck at Discord, so probably not a Discord. I know I comment a ton. I comment a lot. I think a lot of this stuff is like pretty good. And if somebody gives a wall of text, generally I reply with a wall of text, right? So it's something I didn't think about, admittedly. Okay, so to be continued, but no promises, because it's ultimately their clans. I have my clan and the alliance, but it's more of like a home for social clans. So it's not like I'm an overlord or anything, and I don't want to be. Okay, final topic for today. Um, I have been seeing from a couple of you in the clan and the alliance. I don't know where this came from, and this is definitely not something I would deal with. So I appreciate y'all actually saying this to me. Um, and actually, more importantly, sharing screenshots, because we're up to like 6 incidences of this, and it's been like in the last week. So obviously, like percentage wise, that's pretty low. But still, like considering this is something that's generally not a Warframe thing, um, people getting MR shamed that are new players. Um, I can do very little about it for you, other than apologize to you on the other person's behalf and plead their ignorance. Um, Listen, in terms of time played in any of the clans that are in my alliance, is an MR24 with like 27k endgame hours. He thinks it's hilarious. Cause like he's like, oh yeah, I'll get like a LR1 or MR30, being like, oh blah blah blah, you're just a MR24 whatever, and the guy has like literally 12 times the hour of the other guy. He loves sitting in survivals, and he's like, listen man, I just come home from work, man, do like 4 hours in a survival, pause it, go to work, come back the next day, maybe before work I'll do like an hour, and he's just like in a mission for like 37 hours straight. Like the bro's got the gift for it. Like it but it's just what he does. So that sort of stuff like but in terms of like understanding the game, and this would be the wider point that I would try to bring, in terms of understanding the game, holy Jesus is not tied to MR level, okay? You can have an MR5 or 6. Um, like I would say, like an MR1 through 3. Um, I would be surprised if they know how to chew gum correctly in Warframe. But that being said, once you get past that, you can find people that are very, very knowledgeable. Because if they go learn how to do like an exterminate really well, and they learn like the correct way to do it, well, what's the difference between an MR3 and an LR2 at doing a lith exterminate? Speed, but they're still gonna complete the mission, right? Now, obviously, there are some sweatier things. Like, what is it? Like Eidolons, Profit Taker, um, specific bosses. You have the Void Angels are kind of like gear checks, but there aren't many, and very few of them require coordination. Profit Taker can be beaten down nowadays. Oh, and the archons now. That was the other one. So it's Eidolons, Profit Taker, Void Angels. When they scale, um, and archons, right? So those are the four main gear checks in the game. Because if you speed run all the way to the Zeraman and you still have a moat amp, you're gonna have a bad time. Okay? You're gonna have a bad time if you skip the open worlds. So it is technically a gear check. Not as big as like Eidolons or Archon hunts. So, but like Archon hunts are definitely a gear check, and it's kind of an easy one to pass once you learn what you're modding for. Um, but it still counts as a gear check. You can't go in with like base mods. Like you need a little bit extra, not a ton, but just a little bit. It's definitely a gear check. So stuff like that, don't worry about it. The MR thing is completely irrelevant. I mean, like, what do you get past MR16? Which literally the only point for it is like the MR requirement on Rivens. MR16, what at MR30? What'd you get? 30 Riven slots, 3 umbral forma, and loadout slots, and void essence capacity and maybe what, a power core? Like what are you really getting, you know? So it's just, it is what it is. Just ignore them. I'm not going to call out what frame most of these complaints were coming from, or the people doing the complaining, because it was two, and as you could probably figure out which ones those were, they definitely have a reputation when dealing with eidolons and long mission runs. Um, but just realize it's people that have like maybe been told how to do something. Because anybody that I know that has bothered to figure out their own information and isn't following a preset build path, if they figured the information out on their own and they know the builds that sort of work, and you're even remotely close, they don't give a shit. Like, even when I do like an hour run or like a 2 hour run or something, somebody's like, "Oh, do you mind if I do like this?" And I'm like, "Bro, I don't care. I'm gonna fucking carry this shit." Like, just as long as you don't trigger AFK and fuck up the spawn rate, I literally do not care what you do. Like, that's literally the only thing. Just once a minute, just move your frame 5 meters and keep Necros Desecrate on. That's all you gotta do, and I don't care what you do after that. Right? Um, and occasionally, I don't know, terrify something, right? Like, what are you gonna say? Like, I just need you to not die. Um, and even then, like, if it's like sub an hour, as long as they're not chain dying, I still don't care. Because it's just, I understand the game. So people like hyper sweating a 1 hour run is absurd, right? Like, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of triggered me a little bit. Hold on, I'm gonna pseudo call somebody out. Okay, I give you full permission to straight up fucking ignore somebody. Okay, if they say something nasty to you, and they're like, "Oh, blah blah blah, your MR whatever," check their profile. I don't care what their MR is, and if they do not have a billion XP on Smita, just take whatever they say with a grain of salt. It is so easy to get a billion XP on this cat because it gives you an affinity buff. And I've never changed the Clamoran. Feels good. But this is the main cat you use when farming and doing long runs. If they're being nasty to you about like a 1 hour run, and you go and check their profile, and it's like Korra with like 20 million XP, and you know they're like 50 weapons into the game or something like that, just ignore them. They're not anything, right? Um, like shit. I'm not even at 3K time played yet. I'm not even at 3K time played. 175 mil income because I don't do profit taker, right? Wait, I'm missing Steel Path. Oh, I bet that's the Zerman. Ew. I think that's what, Flood or Armageddon, and the other one. I'll do that tomorrow. Um, so just, you got to know what you're looking at. But if they don't have a Smita with a billion XP, and they're trying to MR shame you for something, just discount them. Just discount them on principle. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because if you're doing long runs and you're farming with Korra, uh, baby, that cat better have a billion XP on it, or damn close. Because a billion XP is like what? What is it? 3? No, it's not 3. I think it's 4 level cap runs with a Smita. No, hold on. I can figure this out. I self-resed on accident in a level cap run at like 9 hours, and it cost me 150 million XP on Loki. Or 150 million affinity. Um so yeah, what is that? 10 to 1? So maybe 11 hours of like higher end survival to max it. That's not a lot on Korra. So if they're being sweaty, just ignore them. Now, the only thing that MR can tell you, and I mean this genuinely, the only thing that MR can possibly clue you into anything is that if you're talking to like an MR2, and right now, I have everything, minus the Founders Pack. If you see somebody with an odd number like this at the max rank, you can like 5% of the time assume that person might know what's going on. Because let me tell you, there is stuff I definitely know about the game, but there is also a lot of shit that I don't. Okay, so maybe like 8% of the time, I could talk competently about something in the game. Like say, like survival runs, I'd probably be pretty good at. Cascade runs, I'm catching the knack of it, but I don't know what's min-maxed. Probably have a pretty good educated opinion on running a clan. Slight alliance drama, I'm learning. Weapon building, I'd probably say I'm like an 8 out of 10. Because I don't like the 10 out of 10 complexity builds, because you're starting to talk about like full frame builds, right? They're uncomfortable to play. I like the pick up and run stuff. And I'm LR2. So what's the difference? If you have somebody who's like, it's just it rubs me the wrong way when there's like people getting shit on because of their MR, and it's like, Jesus Christ, they're just trying to play the fucking game, right? It is a bit much. So the only thing I can say is just block them. They don't know what they're doing. Because if they did, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. You can kill up to level cap with fucking anything. And if they knew that, they wouldn't care that you bought Trinity to a level cap run. They wouldn't care if you're doing a farm mission. Like you want to farm some Kuva for like 30 minutes. They wouldn't be pissed that you wanted to bring a Necros or a Trinity or like a Titania or whatever. They wouldn't care if they knew better. Now, if it's like, oh, you want to do a level cap run, okay, there's some things to consider, but you can still bring anything. That's the only thing. So people like getting pissed that you brought a specific frame or like a specific weapon, fucking ignore them. Okay, it's garbage. Anyway, that is the end of my rant. At a full 1 hour and 45 minutes, I believe I have caught up. God bless any of you that actually made it this far. So I'm not going to recap it. I'm just going to end it. Say a little prayer for me that I don't blow away in this fucking hurricane. But either way, everybody stay excellent. Have a blessed day.